Here's another one. This is BBC News. UK warned to bolster defenses against cyber attacks as Russia threatens Ukraine. Before I comment on this, I want to say this is not a political commentary. I'm not even interested in having that conversation. I'd leave that all to my wonderful husband who can watch all the politic front. But when I see cyber attack, my ears perk up. So this has nothing to do with Russia or Ukraine. I work with Russian people and I have, not even thinking about that. But I love this. And when business owners, when we see this kind of stuff in the news, what does it mean to us? What are we supposed to do with this, right? Like, how are we supposed to deal with these types of things in the media? Because we see them. So let me read just a little bit from this article. UK organizations are being urged to bolster their defenses amid fears cyber attacks linked to the conflict in Ukraine could move beyond its borders. A vital company saying it's vital that companies stay ahead of potential threats. I guess in 2015, they hacked into a Ukrainian power station, and the engineers there saw cursors moving across the screen by themselves, so they knew they had been hacked, and then hundreds of thousands of people lost power for hours. So this is serious. This is really serious. So it's kind of 2 points I want to make on this, because when we read this kind of stuff in the news, as a business owner, what does this have to do with me? Do I need to worry? Do I need to freak out? Do I need to panic? Like, what do I do? Well, first of all, don't freak out. That doesn't help anybody. So just, it's fine. But you can't ignore this stuff. Like, this is our world, right? And it's not going to stop. It's only going to increase. And so you got to figure out, like, how do you process this when you see stuff? So my first thought is it's a power station. Well, most of us don't really run power stations. So then you think, are they really going to come after me? Does this really apply to me? Do I really need to worry about this? And the answer is yes. Yes, yes, yes. Here's why. They will go after the weakest link. And so companies in today's landscape are all connected to each other. And there's no such thing as physical borders, right? The cloud, the internet. Come on, it spans the whole globe. Give us a few more years, it'll probably be off the globe, right? It'll be on another planet or the moon or something. But right now, it's the whole planet, right? So there are no borders when it comes to the cloud and the internet. And we're all connected. And these people, these hackers, some of them, they do it for different reasons. Some of them are activists. They're trying to do it for a right reason. Many of them are just nefarious. They're just trying to get what they can get, right? Unfortunately, I always say they should just get a job, right? Come on, do it like the rest of us, right? But that's not the way it works. They are so patient. Like, that's what people don't understand. Hackers are really patient. Like, especially some of these country-based hacking regimes, they'll spend years getting into where they want to get into. They'll use social engineering. They'll use whatever tactic they can. And guess what? They'll go up the supply chain if they can as well. Look what happened not that long ago with SolarWinds. That was a breach in the supply chain. They will go up the supply chain if they can. They'll do it however they can. And so it's easy to see something like this and go, well, I'm not in Europe. I'm in America. It's okay. But that's not true because there's no physical boundaries. All companies, ultimately, I think are probably connected somewhere. And then it's power stations and they talk about telephone lines in here. They're not going to come after me. That's not what I do. But they'll go wherever they can. They'll go for the weakest link. And if you're the weakest link, that's where they'll start and they'll see what they can do. And so nobody wants to be the weakest link, right? I remember years ago, I came home to my house and the front doors were wide open. And I was scared. I didn't know, oh my gosh, is there somebody in there? So I called police. Policeman came out and did inspection, and I guess the wind blew them open. I have no idea what happened. Thankfully, nothing was wrong. But the policeman told me, he said, look, here's the trick. Make your house one step more secure than the house door next door to you. And I've never forgotten that. If your neighbor doesn't have lights, you put up lights. Just minor little things. If your neighbor doesn't have a lock on his fence, you put a lock on your fence. Little things, right? Just to make you that one step above so you're not the weakest link anymore. And it's the same. The principle is true in cybersecurity as well as physical security, right? Just they're going to go after the weakest link most likely, unless you're a power station. Of course, then they're going to target you directly. But if they can't get there, they're going to look for what's attached. They're going to look for where they can get in. So let's say one of your customers is a target, and you don't even know that. Obviously, they're not going to post a list of companies that they're interested in or industries. But let's say one of your customers is one of those targets. Well, you're their supplier, so that automatically makes you a target. Or maybe you're a couple of layers removed, but you're still in the ecosystem, and they're very patient to figure out how to get to where they want. And they're very patient about the timing and all of that. And so when we read these articles, what we should be thinking is, I don't want to be the weakest link. I don't want to be the cause of somebody else's breach. Don't forget them, but my own customers and my own suppliers, yes, I want to be mindful of that, but I don't want to be the cause of somebody else. And so that's what we should be thinking in this. Now, I'm going to flip it around a little bit, because later in the article it says they even disrupted the telephone lines so that engineers could make calls. Well, guess what? Today, telephone lines in large part are on the internet, right? It's all digital. It's a digital world. So this is where you can be an unplanned victim of this stuff, right? Again, it's not physical borders in the cyber world, right? So something can happen over there and they can disrupt whatever. And that could be your telephone lines, because we're all digital. And maybe the company you hired or the partner you hired to do your call center somehow is affected because they're not doing their job. And so now you have become an unplanned victim of this whole thing. So that's the other thing we should be thinking, like, oh, okay, who are my suppliers? Are they going to be affected by this? Or do I have redundancy? If call center is so super important to your organization, have a backup, have a secondary, have alternative communication lines, whatever you got to have. A lot of companies, call centers, not a huge deal, but there's other things that are a big deal. Like in the cloud platforms, they have different regions and different zones. There's a reason for that, because if one is affected, I can't have my business be down because of what's going on the other side of the planet. It's a reality. So what's my redundancy? What's my business continuity plan? What's my disaster recovery plan? And then I always urge companies to test those plans. So we live in Texas and we don't do cold weather. And last year, the Snowmageddon came through. And I've never seen -2 in my life. I know many of my northern friends are going to laugh, but this Texan doesn't know what to do with -2 as a real temperature. But that's how cold it got here. It was ridiculous. And it was like 10 days. It was a long time. So in that moment, all the planning that we thought we did, all the preparation we thought we did, we learned real quick what we did not prepare for, unfortunately. So if it happens again, we now have a generator, we test the generator, we have extra power cords, like we got this down, right? Like now we have our plan. But it took the real event, unfortunately, to get us to that point. I felt kind of silly because, this is what I do, right? I help companies prepare to have that resiliency with business continuity and disaster recovery. So I'm like, we should have been better prepared. We should have thought about these things. Like our water got contaminated. We couldn't boil water. Like, I never thought about that. Like, how do we boil water? How do we cook food? Because if you know anything about last year, we only had electricity for like a half hour at a time, off and on. It was terrible for like 5 days. And so, but sadly, you don't want to be in that moment with your business trying to figure it out. So you figure it out ahead of time, and you have, business continuity plans are not words on paper. They're plans in place to ensure or can greatly contribute to the continuity of your business. That's the mechanism. That's what they do. And you test them so that in the real moment, you're like, I got this. We're all over this. We know how to do this because we tested it. And so that's what you want to be thinking. Are you doing that in your disaster recovery plans that are more technical in nature, but that fit along with your business continuity plan? So that's what this article does. It's not to discourage us. It's not to make us freak out. Nobody makes good decisions freaked out. And nobody makes good knee-jerk decisions. We want to be calm. We want to be rational. We want to run our business well. If you don't have the expertise or someone who does, find somebody who can help you. Like, that's the reality, right? Don't mess around with this stuff. Cybersecurity, governance, risk, compliance, all of those mechanisms are to help prepare your business and to help make your business more sustainable and safer as you go. And so these are not just words on paper to check as quick as you can. Like, this is the point of these exercises. And when I read articles like this, I'm like, unfortunately, companies find out the hard way how important this stuff is. So when you read this stuff in the news, don't panic. Don't freak out. But it is cause for reflection to say, what would I do if this did affect in this area? What would I do if I'm the weakest link and they used me to get to others? How would I deal with that as a business owner or in the ones responsible for this? And so that is the encouragement of articles like this.